Hey guys, it's Gala Avery from the Video Archives podcast. While we're shuffling tapes and gearing up for season 2, Quentin and Roger have sent me on a mission all around Los Angeles and beyond to talk with filmmakers, photographers, VHS collectors, and other interesting characters. What are we going to be talking about? Well, that's up for my guests to decide. On the Gala show, guests have 30 minutes to talk about whatever topic they want you to know about. Filmmakers like Josh Miller will tell us how he found his tribe, while writers like Larry Karaszewski will let you know what he considers to be a true LA movie. VHS collectors like Connor Holt make an argument for the genre of pirate movies, while writers like Josh Olson are going to let us in on what he considers to be right-wing cinema. Actors like Percy Hines White will share his love of outsider art, while animators and cartoonist Sierra Nielli will reminisce on his experiences of growing up in a Philly pizza shop and how this time in his life influenced him to pick up a pencil. So, join me every Thursday for a new guest with an entirely new topic. The Gala show premieres October 26th, available wherever you get your podcasts. On this episode of the Video Archives podcast, we have a customer. Eli Roth, director of Hostel and Cabin Fever, joins Quentin and Roger in the store today for a special 2-part event, American Giallo. Join Roger, Quentin, and Eli as they give us the masterclass, discussing the origins of Giallo and the rules that the genre must follow. First up is Brian De Palma's Dressed to Kill. A mysterious, tall, blonde woman wearing sunglasses murders one of a psychiatrist's patients, and now she's after the prostitute who witnessed it. Quentin, Roger, and Eli talk about how the villainous Bobbi affected them, discuss the controversy surrounding the film, and reveal to us how the story changed from script to screen. Second, we'll take a look at the crime scene through Irv Kershner's Eyes of Laura Mars. A famous fashion photographer develops a disturbing ability to see through the eyes of a killer. We'll be talking about strange plot devices, have Quentin read excerpts from interviews that shed light on the true history of the film, and listen to how Eli Roth would have rewritten the end. All of this and more on Part 1 of American Giallo. I'm Gala Avery, and joining us now, here's Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery.
Thank you, Gala. This is another edition of the Video Archives podcast. I'm your co-host, Quentin Tarantino.
And I'm Roger Avery.
And today we are joined at Video Archives by a customer.
Yes. Hi, I'm Eli Roth.
Eli Roth, the director of Cabin Fever, is here. All right, horror aficionado, horror expert, and the guru behind
the history of horror.
The history of horror, yeah.
History of horror, yeah.
So truly one of the most known horror experts in the world. Tonight we're doing something different that we haven't done before yet, is a theme episode. Now, I've kind of put the kibosh for the most part on theme episodes because they're just so easy to do. I like there's a randomness to the choosing of the movies, and I like the idea that I can change my mind at the last minute, or something can happen in one episode and then, oh, hey, let's do another Samantha Eggar movie because we like Samantha Eggar. You know, that kind of, I like the flow. I like there's a flow, movable feast aspect to it. However, I decided to save our first theme episode for when Eli would join us. It's the concept of American Giallos. Now, first, let me describe, well, all of us will describe what an official Giallo is. Giallo is a series of films that came out of Italy, starting for the most part, starting officially, actually, in 1970 with Dario Argento's The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. Now, there were a few precursor movies to this, especially some of Mario Bava's movies.
Yeah, The Girl Who Knew Too Much.
The Girl Who Knew, yeah. Well, I call that still Evil Eye. I like the Evil Eye title better. And I like the American dub better than the Italian version. It's got jokes that the Italian version doesn't have. Ooh. So while there were precursors, the genre kicked into full gear after the success of Bird with the Crystal Plumage. And, one of the things, Roger, we were talking about earlier when we were discussing what a Giallo is, you were asking, okay, well, wait a minute, is since a lot of these films were Psycho kind of ripoffs, is Psycho a Giallo?
I mean, we often think of Dario Argento. He was actually called the Italian Hitchcock, especially on the heels of Bird with the Crystal Plumage.
But there's a reason for that, all right? Because, one, actually, I don't think Psycho is the Giallo. However, they did so many Psycho ripoffs that eventually it became a subgenre unto themselves. But one of the reasons why they called Argento the Italian Hitchcock is because the way they sold Bird with the Crystal Plumage, because they sold it very much like, not since Psycho. They sold it as a not since Psycho shocker, except the difference is it's 1970s. So almost like Repulsion, more illicit thrills.
The level of violence you were allowed to do in those films. And they credit Pasolini for pushing the censors. And with all of his films, they were just like the censors sort of gave up. So by the time the horror, the directors came around, moving over from spaghetti westerns into the Giallos. But Giallo, if for people that don't know, literally means yellow in Italian. And there was a company called Mondadori in 1929 that started publishing these crime novels, and they all had the same kind of cover, which was a yellow cover with a circle in them. Like, if you ever seen like the porno Holocaust poster, that's a riff on that. It's a very yellow color with a circle. And in the circle is a picture of like the main murder.
Almost like the Warner Brothers box, okay, where it has the back, all right, and then there's the image grafted in the middle of it.
Yeah, so that's what it was. So people were very used to reading them. Then in the late 50s in Germany, the crime film started, and they were a massive hit in Italy, and they always had an international star. So,
and again, based on the literary novels of Edgar Wallace. So they're all based on old world pulpy.
Yeah, there was a writer named Sherbanenko that was like the big one that they loved. But it was Ernesto Gastali. Basically, they were crime novels where you had to figure out who the killer was, and it's a guessing game for the audience to see if they can figure it out before the main character. That's how it began until Argento changed the game in 1970.
But I don't think the game changed that much, other than the murder scenes got more graphic and they became more showpieces. The English artists that the Giallos are connected at the hip to is not Hitchcock, it's Agatha Christie.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
they're all jumping off from basically 10 Little Indians.
10 Little Indians, yeah. It's kind of when Mario Bava turns to color for the whip in the body and really, Blood and Black Lace. That's when, you start to see the camera work and the killer coming from the shadows and the killer all dressed in black and black leather gloves. And then, Fulci does one. I think Fulci credits Sweet Body of Deborah for being kind of the first Giallo, he thinks, where you're guessing and looking at the bodies. But
I don't really agree with that.
I know this was from Lucio Fulci.
I don't agree with that. I really almost don't think even the Umberto Lenzi Carol Baker movies even qualify as Giallos. They're like jet age chic. They're not even murder mysteries.
They're not. No, but it's really like one on top of the other. Fulci. This was Fulci's attempt to do one. But what happened in 1970 was Argento just basically. Suddenly the plot becomes incidental, and it's all about, like you said, they become like musical numbers, and they're so over the top, and he doesn't worry about logic, like that crazy puppet in Deep Red, that his producers and brother and everyone tried to talk him out of doing it, and he had Carlo Rambaldi build it. He basically is like, you're entering my nightmare, and I'm in control here, and you're going to like it. And so Bird with the Crystal Plumage was so insane with the violence that after that, there were certain things like the black gloves, the kind of fetishistic close-ups of the killer's gloves, penetrating with blades. The other thing that Argento did was his use of music. Like the other scores were more traditional, but the way he used the Morricone music, the soundtrack is so almost insane and over the top that it really punctuates the quiet moments.
Let's go through the templates. Okay, so basically they all start as big murder mysteries. As opposed to, say, slashers. They're big murder mysteries with usually a whole cast of European characters. Almost to the man, not every single one of them, but most of them. I would say about 80% of them. You don't know who the killer is. They don't all have to have black gloves, but most of them have black gloves. You're introduced to a whole cast of characters, most of them which will turn out to be victims, but definitely suspicious characters that one will turn out to be the killer. How suspicious they are is almost comical. Everybody could literally be the killer, and everybody has reason to be the killer. The murder sequences, like we were saying, are all like Omen-like set pieces. Then I would say the last big giant thing, even though there's a few other aspects about them, the music, the this, the that. Finally, there comes a resolution of why the killer is doing what the killer is doing, usually told by the killer as he's facing the last final girl or final guy. And it usually has something to do with their past. And it is so fucking preposterous. You cannot believe that this is the reason that the whole movie is going on. And the crazier and the more preposterous, the better.
Yeah.
Well, there's one other element, and I think it's connected to this constant discussion of how stylized and how over the top, the cinema tends to be in this. And that's that we are entering a nightmare-scape always, it seems. Pino Donaggio's music for Brian De Palma really accentuates that feeling. You feel the longing of traveling through a nightmare.
Well, I would add
the way that these movies tend to be shot, the hyper stylization, how things go red. All of talking about.
I would add to what you're saying, especially when it comes to the Italian ones, the very Italianness of them, their connection to opera.
Yeah, they're operatic.
Yeah,
they're not.
It's opera.
They're not in reality. And also one thing that Argento innovated on was he used humor. And in the Creamy movies, there was comic relief. And so Argento will have a weird character.
The German Creamy
movies. The Creamy movies.
Yeah, there's the same Eddie Ardent, who's always...
Eddie,
and then there's this comical sidekick. Yeah,
so that was a thing that they did in the German crime films, and that aren't in those 60s movies, but Argento, he'll have that's the crazy painter, or this is the pimp. And then often that person will wind up being the killer. You're like, this person's too funny. Like even in Torso, the guy's bringing the food and the milk bottles. Like there's always a character, but they also have a lot of POVs. Mario Bava with Bay of Blood really innovates the handheld POV. And so that sort of killer POV that anyone can be a killer, that anyone can jump out at any time. And often it's the boyfriend. That was all innovated by the Giallos. And one of the main complaints I heard, I remember as a kid, was that people go, but they're not scary. The music's too weird. And why is everything dubbed? They don't realize was that these movies were shot in Italy, that because of Mussolini, you weren't allowed to do sync sound. You had to have a censor with you, and they just got used to the dubbing. It's just part of the aesthetic. It's like when you listen to a vinyl, it's like
it gives a dreamlike detachment to everything. In fact, I would say Argento kind of lost it a little when he started doing sync sound.
When you see them with a dreamlike quality and the goblin music, you have to think you're entering a nightmare, and it's not all going to feel like an American movie. So once you can, as you would say, like the way you embrace the aesthetic of an old low budget movie, I think it's suddenly, you really open yourself up to enjoying the whole experience. So for people that haven't seen Giallos, they're not going to be scary the way American slasher films are, but the imagery is so horrific, it just stays with you forever.
But perhaps that's by design, because by having it be super stylized, it allows you to distance yourself from reality. You mentioned the Omen earlier, is that it's Omen-like, and I would actually say it's not Omen-like. The thing that makes Omen effective is that it's those murders, though they are set pieces, are treated almost like verite. This, like everything that happens, even like when the maid jumps out or jumps from the window and is hung, it's shot like they're capturing footage. Whereas in an Italian Giallo, everything is like, and it goes crazy all of a sudden.
Okay, the Omen it's hard for people to remember now, but when you first saw The Omen at the theaters when it came out, you didn't know Damien was the Antichrist. You're figuring there's a whole mystery going on that you're figuring out right along with Gregory Peck, because they're not saying per se in the TV spots. Eventually they did, but not at first.
You think like somebody might be trying to kill the child.
Yeah, you don't really know what's up with this little fucking kid. All right, and so then you go through the whole mystery with Gregory Peck and you figure it out. Now, by the time they do Omen 2, we already know Damien's the Antichrist. It's William Holden is the stupid one who doesn't know it, and we wait for him to figure it out. And so basically, most of the movie is people figure out who Damien is, and then they die in a big murder set piece. That's what I meant about where like the murder set pieces are integral to the structure of the story.
Yeah. And that may be true with Damien Omen 2. It's just that Richard Donner shoots the Omen almost with realism. The only scene that strikes me as not being realistic and almost bordering on Hammer is the scene in the graveyard with the dogs, and suddenly you feel like you're on a set, with on the moors.
Right. But there's another thing in Giallo that's going to tie into what we're saying today, is that there's often something like you have to make one leap of like precognition. There'll be one fantastical element, not always, but like in The Psychic or in Four Flies on Grey Velvet, there's something that like a technology that doesn't exist, or you just have to believe. We have to buy that person has visions. Yeah. So that was something they tried to do.
We have to buy the idea that the face of the murderer is implanted on the eyeball of the murder victim.
Yeah. And once you can get past that, you
as
can
their
really
last image in life.
The slow motion decapitation.
And it can be lifted from the eyeball of the murder
I feel like
victim.
that technology is possible.
Yeah.
It strikes me as realistic.
But the deaths are so good.
Oddly enough, though, okay, when they have modern day serial killer movies and the serial killer fucks up and actually touches the eyeball, all right, and now you can get a half print from the eyeball. That always reminds me.
I mean, I feel like it's more.
Four Flies on Grey Velvet.
I feel like that film is actually more sensical than Eyes of Laura Mars's whole cockamamie.
Well, I think
which we'll get to later.
I don't believe the eyeball thing, but it actually makes more sense. I kind of wish that were true.
In Giallo films, is the straight razor the weapon of choice?
Well, it started with that. It was like a stiletto or a straight razor, but actually...
The answer is yes, but any other things can be used. Meat cleavers, axes...
It's just a fetishistic... Everything is fetishized. The weapons are fetishized. The eyeglasses are fetishized. The raincoat is fetishized. Like, everything is...
The foulard and torso.
But I would say 60 to 70% of the time it's usually... at least in the first half of the Giallos,
yes,
it's usually a straight razor. Then at a certain point, they got bored with that, and then all of a sudden it would become an axe. And or
Argento really innovated on that, where it would be like the knife or the axe, then it's like in the bathtub, and then the chain and the piece of glass. I mean, they just get crazier and crazier.
Whatever it is, it glints light.
Yes.
Yeah, but one of the things about it, though, is just as they went on, the murder scenes got to be bigger and bigger and bigger. So it was like, oh, well, it's just boring to slice somebody up. Now we have to boil them alive. Yeah. Right now we have to.
It's also... and we should just, before we dive into it, mention that from just so people have context, after 1970, Bird with the Crystal Plumage was such a big hit. Between that and 1975, when Argento made Deep Red, there were close to 100 Giallo films made.
Yeah.
So this was a massive. It's like, there was like more than movies than Netflix makes.
So what we're doing here is we're talking about the American Giallos. Well, movies that constitute what an American Giallo could be. Now, I don't think any of these movies, even though I think it's obvious that both Alice, Sweet Alice and Dressed to Kill have seen Giallos and are somewhat influenced by them, they weren't setting out to make an American Giallo, and that was their jumping off point. But I think they do qualify, and I think it'll be interesting to go through the movies, talk about them, and then and we can even kind of debate about, okay, well, why do they qualify? Why does this qualify where Coma doesn't? And does Coma qualify? Even whatever, we can discuss that as we go through. These are the four that I think kind of work unqualified as American
These
Giallos.
are the ones you pulled from the archives shelves.
Yes. And I don't think there's a lot of other examples of this. I think, they always kind of turn into slashers, or they always turn into psychological thrillers, or they always turn into a Hitchcockian kind of thriller. These actually, and I was really happy when we watched that, they stayed firmly on the Giallo side of the line through the whole movie.
Especially in the early 80s, when you look at the sort of My Bloody Valentine or The Prowler, where you're trying to guess who the killer is. It's not, they don't feel like Giallos. They're truly slasher movies. There's one weapon, it's used over and over. You're watching them get picked off, but there's a different style to these movies that make them Giallo films.
No, and that's a good example, because it's like, on the surface, The Prowler seems to have all the same ingredients that Happy Birthday to Me does, except it doesn't.
Yeah.
Brian De Palma invites you to a showing of the latest fashion in murder. Dressed to Kill.
Doctor, I am not paranoid. Bobbi has threatened me over the phone. She said she was going to hurt me. My patient was slashed to death and my razor's gone.
There's all kinds of ways to get killed in this city, if you're looking for it.
Dressed to Kill. Murder. Made to order. Rated R.
Dressed to Kill with co-hit Eyes of Laura Mars will be playing Wednesday, October 19th and Thursday, October 20th at the New Beverly Cinema at 7165 Beverly Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90036. Visit thenewbev.com for more information. The New Beverly Cinema, always on film.
Always on film.
So, starting off with the first film is Brian De Palma's Dressed to Kill. This is from the Video Archive shelf. Not only is it from the Video Archive shelf, it's tape 270, one of the earliest tapes that we...
Easily one of the first tapes in the library and in an old Warner Brothers. And then
not only that...
one of the paper boxes.
Yeah, one of the paper boxes. By the way, one of the best of the Warner's paper boxes. Okay. Depending on the video store, Dressed to Kill would either be under the D section in horror, or it would be in the D section of drama, because this was a classy movie that sometimes people would look in the dramas for it. I think we put it in drama.
Yeah, I always restored it to drama.
Yeah, I think it kept finding its way back
what
into...
do you mean restored it?
Well, the tape
he saw it. He saw it in horror.
That's where it properly belongs.
Yeah, he saw it in horror.
That's what you call a video store term.
Yeah.
We restored it.
Yeah, he saw it in horror. No, that's not right. All right.
I put this in where it belongs.
Please
Put it in drama.
Restore my movies to the drama section.
Okay, so now I'm going to read the synopsis of the story by reading the back of the box. Brace yourself for the razor edge of suspense! Exclamation point. A disturbed woman, adrift in steamy sexual fantasies. A New York psychiatrist who seems to have taken on one patient too many. A beautiful call girl caught between the cops and a vicious razor-wielding killer. And the killer herself. A tall, blonde, elusive psycho named Bobbi. Dressed to Kill contains all the heart-stopping elements of a classic suspense thriller, but writer-director Brian De Palma turns up the heat and takes them one step further to create a masterpiece. Michael Caine stars as the psychiatrist faced with a murderous puzzle. The sudden, hideous slaying of one of his patients with a straight razor stolen from his office. Angie Dickinson delivers a warm and touching performance as the sexually unfulfilled woman who turns to him for help. Nancy Allen plays the high-priced hooker who opens her elevator doors on the grisly aftermath of Bobby's psychotic violence. All the acting, including Keith Gordon's wonderful portrayal of a brainy teenager turned sleuth, is vivid and superb. Yet director De Palma manages to steal his own show. Since Hitchcock's death, De Palma must be ranked our greatest living master of the macabre. His previous films, The Sensational Carrie, the moody atmospheric obsession, the carefully crafted and finely detailed The Fury, have firmly established his originality and strength of vision. Dressed to Kill is his most cool, sophisticated, stylish accomplishment to date. You may recognize echoes of Psycho, of Clute, of De Palma's early work, but Dressed to Kill cast its ingredients in a shape and form so compelling you'll see all the conventions of the horror genre come to renewed, unexpected life and scare you half to death. And even though this is not explained what this means, on the very bottom of all that, it says uncensored international version. And what that means is the fact that when De Palma finished Dressed to Kill, it originally received an X rating from the MPAA. I think it kind of comes down to three shots. It's two different shots of Angie Dickinson's bush in the shower, close-ups when she's showering, and then there's the effect in the elevator during the murder when she's sliced literally up the middle. Those were the things that were exercised to get the film an R. However, it became controversial because De Palma, I mean, it's only 3 seconds. De Palma made a big point about, they're screwing up my movie. And then he was joined by Pauline Kael, who backed him up and said, look, I saw Dressed to Kill before the MPAA cuts and I've seen it afterwards, and De Palma's version is better. And then people have said, well, we're talking about 3 seconds. And she goes, well, with an artist like De Palma, 3 seconds matter. 3 seconds is the difference between good and great. And Warner Brothers, without making a big fucking deal about it, restored the movie back in the early 80s, by the way, back when the movie was only a couple of years old, to De Palma's original unrated cut.
In a pan and scan version, which was one of the issues I had with the tape. However, it has to be said, the pan and scan is really lovingly attended to.
It's a pan and scan movie, and then there are some compromises to De Palma's original framing, even though it's not done scope. He shot it like 1:8:5.
Sure.
There is an effort and a charm to make it work that is just so right there. That is just not there when you just take the 1:8:5 interpositive and then just do whatever you're going to do.
They know they have to format it for a 4:3 television screen back in the day, and they're trying to do their very best to maintain the integrity of his intent.
Yeah.
If you're going to restore the 4 seconds, you can take the extra effort to pan and scan it.
So watching Dressed to Kill, because let's lose the Giallo aspect for just a second and just talk about the movie itself. I've been widely known as saying that Blowout is one of my favorite movies.
I used to talk about that back in the day endlessly.
Yeah. No, I love Blowout. And, of the movie brats growing up, De Palma was my favorite. De Palma,
you were like his Praetorian Guard.
Yeah, no, I practically got into, and believe me, being a De Palma fan in the 80s wasn't that easy because there was a lot of people who hated him, and then they'd want to pick fights with you. And
he was polarizing for sure.
I loved him so much. My dad used to call me De Palma. But it wasn't like Spielberg. It was like De Palma.
Yeah, and but being a De Palma fan meant you had to defend De Palma.
When he was when he was upset with you, did he call you De Palma? And when he was happy with you, did he call you Spielberg? Was that the?
No, it wasn't like people would say, "Oh, Eli wants to be Steven Spielberg." My parents were like, "No, Eli wants to be Brian De Palma. He's body double."
No.
At least your dad knows you.
They knew.
He understands.
In the '80s, Spielberg was he's going to be like Spielberg, all right? That was like no, De Palma. As time has gone on, though, Dress to Kill has taken blowout spot for me as after Carrie, my favorite. I think Carrie is just one of the best movies ever made.
Yeah.
But Dress to Kill has kind of taken blowout spot as the ultimate De Palma thriller and the ultimate expression of what De Palma wanted to do.
This is when he has all of his tools, given to him. All these studio tools are now given to him. He's allowed to do accurately what he wants to do.
De Palma's the only one of the movie brats that, for the most part, at least when he did thrillers, wrote his own scripts. But he didn't start off as a screenwriter. He's more like a director writing stuff for himself to do, as opposed to Paul Schrader, as opposed to Francis Ford Coppola, as opposed to John Milius. By the time he does Dress to Kill, now he's writing. Now he knows what he wants to do as a thriller. He's firmly established himself as the new master of the macabre. So he writes Dress to Kill himself, and it actually ends up being a big script in Hollywood. People love it. He's able to get exactly the budget that he wants for it, to be able to shoot it in New York with all the frills, and the studios were fighting for it. And then the studio that ended up winning it was AIP, who was really trying to really make themselves one of the majors at that time. I can't even count the numbers of times that I've seen Dress to Kill over the years. And I'm not saying that watching it with you two guys was my favorite screening of the movie, but it was one of my favorites. There was something about, there was something about just, it's the first of 4 movies. We just got comfortable sitting down on the couch. We put in this really cool old video cassette. We know the movie by heart. And we sat down and just watched it, and we just had so much fun. And there was this interesting thing. We talked, we punctuated things and made comments in the first half. By the second half, we didn't say anything. We were just completely caught up in the dreamlike imagery going on all the way to the end that we know by heart.
You think you've seen a movie a million times and you think you've known it. And then you sit down and you realize that the experience of watching a movie isn't just the movie. It's the people you watch it with. You see it through their eyes. You feel their energy. And so sitting in the room with Eli and you and watching this, and not watching a streaming version of this or a Blu-ray of it or something, but
actually sitting in a theater, watching a print.
Yeah, but actually sitting down and watching it on VHS, I actually saw things I had never seen before in the film. And I realized revelations about the movie I had never really fully understood. And this has always been my favorite De Palma film.
I think we all had that experience where we're like, this is the one that's going to require the least amount of work.
Yeah.
Like we all know it by heart. We've seen it so many times.
Oh, I almost questioned, do we even need to watch it? We've seen it so many times.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it was
You actually said that right before.
I think it was at some point during the museum sequence that we're all just like, this is a goddamn masterpiece.
Yeah.
But in a way that we were like, this isn't just our favorite spot. This is one of the greatest films ever. Like, we are all having these revelations. Then I was thinking about, God, we're always talking about kind of the trans aspect, and that's something that's been discussed a lot. But I was like, wow, opening and closing with these mirroring shower scenes, then thinking about the opening of Carrie and the opening of this and the whole thing about body parts, especially watching it in 2022, when there's so much discussion about gender fluidity and gender identity. And then sort of, we made that note about how Donahue is really, really sensitive to the trans guest in a way
in
that
1979,
in a way
that people aren't now,
but in a way that the movie isn't, because people were more outraged, about the Liz Blake being normalized rather than the trans part. But it was just such a pleasure to watch with you guys and just to sit and watch. I mean, I've always wanted to hang out at I wish it lived and hang out in Video Archives at the time. I felt like we were all living parallel existences. I was just doing it on the East Coast. But to sit and watch it with you was just like, it rekindled my love for that movie and my appreciation for the mastery of De Palma.
And now I have a little capsule review. There's 2 ways to discuss Dress to Kill. One is the masterwork of a virtuoso artist being given all the big studio tools he requires to make his auteur statement. And one could talk for hours about the mastery of those tools. Or one can view the statement itself, the admissions of a provocateur that he is deeply fearful, distrustful, and paranoid of nearly everything in his world. And I say his world because De Palma gives us a self-aware glimpse outside his highly stylized, Pino Donaggio-scored Giallo Dreamscape through the real-world television talk show Donahue, where a person in transition is interviewed with remarkably delicate compassion for 1979. It's certainly in contrast to the homophobic associations De Palma makes between gender transition and homicidal schizophrenia. Aware of this, De Palma encourages a determined contrast between the hard, pixelated video of Donahue's reality talk show and Ralph Bode's fuzzy, dreamlike lenses, a look achieved by literally putting women's stockings between the lens and the film plane. De Palma further contrasts the separations of the two competing perspectives on reality by placing Donahue within a very specific cinematic device, the split screen, and specifically on the screen side of the schizophrenic killer. De Palma's psychiatrist character, Dr. Levy, states the filmmaker's perspective clearly in his postscript analysis, but we can see De Palma's sociological fears and distrusts throughout the film.
It was so interesting when we were talking about that. We're like,
I think you're making too much of the whole.
You always do.
I think it's too easy to make too much of the transgender aspect. It's just De Palma playing with schizophrenia.
Well,
taken directly from Hitchcock.
Well, no,
but it's specifically gender related because in that opening scene, when we're noticing Michael Caine when he says my secretary's away, she's away. He's both being the woman.
He's like, he will be with you in a moment. He's already schizophrenic,
but he's switching between a man and a woman.
But that's all harmless schizophrenia talk for a thriller. I don't think he's making a comment on transsexualism any more than Hitchcock's making a comment on transsexualism with Norman Bates and his mother. But one thing that needs to be talked about in this that we haven't mentioned is Dressed to Kill falls into a special subgenre of movie, and that is the paraphrase remake. Now, there's certain movies that are paraphrased remakes. They're not a remake per se of another movie, but they wouldn't exist without this one particular movie's existence. And when you watch it, if you know about that other movie, that's almost part of the enjoyment that you have watching this new movie. Some of the real paraphrase remakes are absolutely Psycho and Dressed to Kill, Bringing Up Baby and What's Up, Doc. Mm-hmm. So those are things where, like, What's Up, Doc doesn't have the leopard and everything, but if you've seen Bringing Up Baby, that's almost part of what you're getting. You know, now there's movies that come close. Okay. Taxi Driver comes close to being a paraphrase remake of The Searchers, but doesn't quite get there. Now, and people have said about my movie, Reservoir Dogs, is a paraphrase remake of City on Fire. No. It's close insofar as I take the last 10 minutes of City on Fire and make a whole movie about it, but that doesn't qualify to a paraphrase remake status the way Dressed to Kill does.
That's like saying Smokin' Aces is a remake of True Romance.
Yeah, right.
They extrapolated one scene.
But in the case of Dressed to Kill, there are structure moments and there are scenes that the joke of the scene, the wit of the structure is the callback to Psycho. So, like, for instance, the introduction of the Kate Miller character, Andrew Dickinson's character. She's introduced as the lead of the movie and is killed in a big showpiece murder sequence about 40 minutes into the film. And then now the narrative is handed off to other characters. It keeps going on throughout. However, my favorite of the Psycho Funhouse Mirror reflections is one of my favorite scenes in Psycho is Simon Oakland kind of explaining in words very similar to the ones that are used in Dressed to Kill, Norman Bates' sexual psychosis at the end. Okay, this is why he did it all. Kind of Simon Oakland telling it like it is.
And we have Dr. Levy doing that in this film.
Sort of. We start to have the parody of the Psycho Simon Oakland scene with Dr. Levy. But then it jumps the ship, and now it has Nancy Allen delivering it to Keith Gordon. And what we don't see in the video is Mary Davenport sitting behind.
Yeah, because of the pan and scan.
Yeah.
Because of the loss in widescreen.
Sitting behind, I think, Keith Gordon, okay, listening to the blow-by-blow description of how a sex change operation works. Mm-hmm. So that's the real comedy of it is realizing, oh my God, he's got Nancy Allen. She's doing the Simon. It starts off with Dr. Levy, but then it becomes Nancy Allen. And that's just a parody of the Simon Oakland scene.
You know, anticipating your blowback on my thematic reading of a film, I read the script. And actually, I think this is a script that any aspiring writer, actually any writer, should read. This is a great screenplay. This is a textbook on like how to write a script that the town is going to love.
Wow. That's just not De Palma's reputation. It's
I know it's not, but actually in reading it, it's fantastic. And what De Palma is talking about has more to do with his own paranoias and his own fear. What De Palma is doing is what an artist is supposed to do. And I think it's defensible, no matter what he makes, because what you're supposed to do is lay yourself bare. You're supposed to open yourself up and reveal all the things within you that maybe are even uncomfortable to you. You lay naked.
I agree with all that.
In front of the world. It's not just subtextual, it's actual textual throughout the movie. Like after Keith Gordon sprays all the white foam.
Yeah, I mean, that
ejaculates the white foam into Bobbi's face to repel her away. Afterwards, he's telling Nancy Allen, it's a simple compound of sodium. And she's like, hey, spare me the Mr. Wizard lecture. I wouldn't know sodium from Adam. Okay, so Adam being the first man. That's not an accident. And he underlines Adam in the screenplay. It's underlined.
I think just to support Roger's theory, De Palma opens the film lingering on the shot of the female genitalia, but it's literally split with the man shaving and the straight razor. And that's what the film's about. He's telling you, this is a film about the split personality. There's the one side, which is Bobbi, that wants to slice off the genitals, which is what motivates all of the killing in the film. And on the other half, it's the doctor who really doesn't want to go through with it.
A line is cut from the movie in the end when she's trying to turn on the doctor and she's like, hey, aren't you feeling anything? He's like, what's stopping you? And he's like, well, my ethics, for one. And she, in the script, and it's a line cut from the movie probably because of language, in the script she says, a cock doesn't have ethics. And then she continues on with the rest of her lines. And, so maybe I'm just going to go powder my nose and you should do this.
And I expect your clothes to be piled up next to mine.
At the very opening of the script is sort of a prologue scene of a human body being shaved with the straight edge razor, chest hair being shaved, everything being shaved. And then you come down to an empty, they just describe it as an empty space of genitals. And you realize in the script through some of the dialogue that Bobbi has only recently cut off her own genitals. And that this is why she's been at the asylum. I mean, they push the theme even greater. Now, in doing that, he's aware of it. And so he creates the Donahue program. He doesn't create it. He includes the Donahue program to let us know, I know what reality is. Here's a reality talk show. These are my anxieties, shown in a kind of murder mystery. These are the things that scare me.
Well, that sounds different to me than what you said earlier. We are watching it with an eye of analysis as opposed to just entertainment. And we got both.
Absolutely.
We got both of them. But the fact that the movie starts with an erotic scene of characters we don't know, that we actually get to know through the eroticism. We know Kate Miller to some degree or another by the time that sequence is over. But without any introduction of the husband or the wife or the situation, we don't know that that's a fantasy at first when it's happening. That was fucking fantastic. I can't think of another movie other than like something that is just completely labeled as eroticism that would dare to start off with an erotic scene that truly erotic. And put us into that steamy, dreamlike world.
No, it's amazing. And it also really sets
It galvanized us in the watching of it.
Oh, no, I mean, you're sitting there thinking, first, no one would do this like this today. But what it really does is it sets up the museum sequence because we know what's going on in her mind and we know where her fantasies go.
There's a narration
sitting there.
Originally, not a narration, a voiceover.
Really?
Originally, in the screenplay, I was surprised to discover there's an entire internal monologue going on in her mind. So we understand what she's out for. She's looking to get laid. He says Picasso, they're looking at Picasso when they're sitting there. But then he goes ahead and he shoots the Reclining Nude, the gorilla by Tom Palmore, and she writes nuts. And so everything in her mind is like she's looking at art and she's thinking about nuts. Like she's thinking about balls. Like she's making a shopping list.
Well, you get that. Yeah. Well, you get that.
And that's like his, he's making these like little jokes and everything. But there's so much of her own kind of, mental anxieties going on. Like we're hearing everything inside of her head.
But that backs up De Palma's methodology that he's always talked about in interviews. De Palma's always said that his rough cuts, as opposed to other directors, run shorter than other directors, because the thing is he cuts out all the exposition scenes.
Yeah.
And he wants it just to work as visual storytelling, and then adds them as he needs to. So when he's writing the script, okay, I got to make sure that everybody understands this. So he makes it very, very clear on the page, but then he's hoping his imagery will supplant a lot of that description, and he can just little by little start peeling it back until it's just what's needed.
Yeah, it allows the actress to also understand like what's going on in her own mind. Although he does a pretty good job of that throughout the script. I mean,
I believe it. I can't wait to read that.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Where's my birthday yesterday, guys?
No, and so you may have this copy.
Two things to bring up that are interesting in the case of Dress to Kill, to actually back up what you guys are saying, which I'm not against what you guys are saying. I'm just sensitive.
No one's attacking De Palma.
Okay. But one of the things that adds to your guys' hypotheses is the idea of the origin of Dress to Kill. And the origin of Dress to Kill actually isn't Psycho, even though I've made a whole point about it being a paraphrase remake of Psycho. The origin of Dress to Kill is De Palma's failed attempt to do Cruising. Because De Palma read the book for Cruising, which is a bad book. I've read the book for Cruising. All right. I love the freaking movie, but the book is trash. But
you should say you love the Friedkin movie, not the freaking movie.
Yeah, the freaking movie. Not. I love the freaking movie.
Just want to clarify for our listeners at home.
Well, De Palma had read the book and thought about turning it into a feature, and he wrote a script that, frankly, when you think about it now, deals with almost subtextually all the exact same subject of Dress to Kill.
And it's another film that's close to being a Giallo.
No, you made the point when we were talking about the 4 American Giallos. You go, Cruising almost qualifies, but doesn't quite.
And Cruising.
And what was it that disqualified Cruising?
I mean, I think it's that
the police procedural aspect.
That it's a cop story, that it's really a vehicle about cop hero. Al Pacino going crazy.
If it was just about the murder, it would be a Giallo.
And every suspect.
If Dress to Kill had been about Dennis Franz's character.
It's rare to almost never happens that a cop investigating the case is the lead character. And that was one of the things we left out. That's one of the things that we left out. It usually is somebody is either involved in the murders because of their past and that just brings them into it, or they witness the murder or some situation happens and then they turn into amateur detective.
No, that's that. Yeah, no, they're not police stories. They're not police investigation. They're true murder mysteries with someone who's unqualified that's going to lead them into a dangerous situation.
I mean, literally having a cop be the lead character almost doesn't disqualify it as a Giallo, but comes close.
Yeah.
So he took his script for Cruising and then just adapted it into Dress to Kill.
Amazing. Really? I never knew that.
Big moments that were his big moments from Cruising, he just rewrote and put them into Dress to Kill. And apparently his script for Cruising starts with basically the Kate Miller shower scene. It's interesting because, look, in the book I wrote, Cinema Speculation, I have a whole chapter on sisters and like how De Palma became the master of the macabre and why he became, because I don't think he's not coming from a horror film aficionado place. He's coming from a science place. He started off his career as an avant-garde, hippie-influenced satirist. And then by 1970, that hippie aesthetic was dead on arrival. And so De Palma has always been very aware of the politics of how you make movies and how you continue to keep making movies. And so he knew he needed to have a success that would draw audiences to a film. De Palma was given a choice. He had to I have to figure out a commercial niche, a commercial genre I can work in that will allow me to keep making movies. And I think the situation is, one, he's always loved Hitchcock, not so much because I think he loves Hitchcock. He loves Hitchcock's methodology. For a guy who can take apart a transistor radio and put it back together again when he was 12, him breaking apart the components of what makes a Hitchcock thriller was attractive to him. But he's also watching two things going on simultaneously at the same time in the late 60s. He's watching the enthusiastic response to the French New Wave Hitchcock homages like The Bride Wore Black by Truffaut and Claude Chabrol movies, which he can't stand and can't believe that they're getting as good a reviews as they're getting. But in particularly, he sees repulsion.
Yeah.
And he thinks of repulsion, oh, this is the way you do a Hitchcock movie now. This is a Hitchcock thriller for a new age. And where Hitchcock could be disturbing in the margins, when it came to Polanski, disturbance was the whole point. It was the whole enchilada. It was the reason to make the movie. Now, I do not think that he puts Argento as high as he would Polanski. At the end of the day, I think you would probably consider Argento a piker to some degree or another. Nevertheless, the Not Sent Psycho ad campaign of Bird with the Crystal Plumage showed him that there is a market. There is an absolute market that could comfortably fit inside of the horror genre, but is more important as the Hitchcockian homage genre. And that's what he did with Sisters. But I still think he saw Bird with the Crystal Plumage.
For sure.
And I think he saw Deep Red. I think he saw them. And I would actually venture a thing that there is more latent Argento imagery in Dressed to Kill than there is actually even Hitchcockian imagery.
Yeah, it's Argento mixed with a little Michael Powell.
Yeah, the shower is so strong an image that it tends to overwhelm.
Yeah, but I'm more talking about
overwhelm people's references, though.
Yes, exactly. I'm talking in particularly about the black patent leather raincoat,
the glasses, the Italian look,
the POV, the killer,
the slightly fuzzy, foggy quality of the images.
The whole, and again, that's why I also pull back a little bit on making too big of a read on the sexuality of the reveal of the killer, because that's also just from Argento. We don't know the killer at the end of the Bird of Crystal Plumage is a woman until we find out, and we're surprised. We don't know that the killer at the end of Deep. Oh, both of them though. Both of them.
It's like he took the best of what he loved about Hitchcock, what he loved about Polanski, what he loved about Argento, and threw them in a blender, and then creates something that I think he wants to make it classy and elevated.
Yeah.
And, all the stuff at the museum and the score and all of it. It's such an elegant film.
I mean, the thing that makes this the ultimate American Giallo is Pino's music, because it adds the Italian element that is missing from the other ones.
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely.
But
it makes the movie feel
integral to the Giallo.
The entire gallery sequence would be something completely different without Pino Donaggio's score. Without that kind of longing, pulling quality of his dreamlike score.
No, what would be interesting to read the script is because Dressed to Kill without that music, what would that even be? I mean, it's just a different movie. Yeah. I mean, I can't even contemplate what it is without it.
No, it's like Psycho without the music, or Jaws without the music.
Yeah.
Directors like children look to their forefathers, and through imitation, you learn how to become your own person. And so, like a child looks to a parent and imitates in order to learn how to become a person. So too does a filmmaker. We end up becoming people of many parents, and De Palma has his lineages that we can look at and say he's, a composite of all of these different people. He is literally a schizophrenic composite as a filmmaker of these other filmmakers that he so admires, that he looks to, but he's still his own person.
I would actually even go so far as to say that of all the movies that have the lead characters turn amateur detective and try to figure out what's going on, Dressed to Kill might be my favorite. And the team of Keith Gordon's Peter Miller, the young boy, and Nancy Allen, the high-priced prostitute, teaming up together in one of the most charming double acts I've ever seen in a horror film. I mean, they're just they're so charming together. They're so lovely. And without hitting a sexual aspect, there's something romantic about them together. It's
without ever pushing any kind of romance at all. He never pushes it at all.
He doesn't push it at all, but there's something romantic about it that gives it a sexy vibe without sexuality per se. I'm not looking necessarily for, I'm not looking for Keith Gordon to score. I'm kind of thinking if she didn't have that dream, he might have scored over the course of that weekend.
I don't want to ruin the script for you, but in the screenplay, she wakes up with a John in a hotel room screaming.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Wow.
Well, that actually sounds better. That sounds better. That sounds way better.
It was a shock to discover, because that
sounds way better.
And he's like, what the fuck? Are you crazy?
It's pretty cool.
But I think the reason he changed it is because he actually realized how the audience had a connection to Keith Gordon and Nancy Allen, and they wanted to touch base with
For
them.
me, Keith Gordon is my entry to the movie. I was his age, or maybe a little younger, when this movie came in. I think Keith and I are close to the same age, at least. And he looked and behaved and dressed exactly like this friend of ours, Scott, who also was from the video store days.
As if Scott watched Dressed to Kill and go, I'm going to dress like that guy.
Yeah, I'm going to behave like that. I'm going to do that.
He was dressed to Keith.
Yeah.
Dressed to Keith.
I think one of the reasons we love Keith Gordon growing up watching those movies was he wasn't like the typical good-looking macho 80s leading guy. Like he was so much like us, like the nerdy science guy.
He's Brian De Palma, literally.
But he treats Liz with such respect. He never judges her, as the movie never judges her.
She judges him briefly. She says, "You're just a kid." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm the kid that saved your ass."
Right, exactly.
And then finally she's like, okay, but what a kid.
Yeah. And it's such,
but it's so charming.
Sweet.
I like it when she says that.
She's so amazing, Nancy Allen. That
No, but you make a really good point. It's really cool that Peter Miller doesn't judge Liz Blake for what she does.
At all.
That's really cool. That's a really, really cool progressive aspect from him that doesn't scream as such. That's why they're so good together.
And it's what the movie does so well, and it's what people were so upset about at the time. Like, how dare you not judge or make a comment on this woman? Like, you never. And even Dennis Franz is just like, he basically empowers her. He's like, look, I can't get in there, but you can.
Hey,
do the detective work for me. Like, my hands are tied. Like,
you got more at stake at this than I do. Hey,
your ass.
Yeah, your ass.
Yeah. I mean, but it's even kind of interesting that like Dennis Franz, who bust her balls, all right, through the whole film, only to find out at the end, well, no, that we just wanted the appointment book, all right? He was actually looking out for her. He never really thought she did.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to arrest her. That's not the guy he's been, all right, through the whole fucking movie.
Ted from out of town will get Ted in town
that's my
and
favorite line.
downtown.
Oh, this Ted from out of town. You better get him in town and downtown. Finally got a statement to who and what he saw.
And also the locations. I mean, like that she calls from a payphone on the river, just the way, the choice of locations, all those things that we thought about.
It's the return of De Palma's New York, because De Palma, spent his whole early career filming New York. Yeah. But he's a different guy.
It's not Greenwich Village.
By the time he films Dressed to Kill, now it's about the Met. Now if he's renting out an apartment, it's on the fucking Upper West Side. Yeah. And that's the world that he explores this time. It's not Greenwich Village.
No,
it's not Soho.
It's wealthy people and people cheating and bored people and all.
But everybody getting laid after lunch.
By the way, psychiatrist, that was a rare thing that you could afford a psychiatrist back then.
Pardon my language, but he's giving her a blow-by-blow. The cab driver gave me a blow-by-blow.
She went down on him in the cab, for Christ's sake. I got a cabbie giving me a blow-by-blow.
Start to finish, there's not a weak shot, not a weak moment, no fat. Just like we like you said, we couldn't stop talking about how much we loved it, and then we were silent just watching it.
Now, one of the things you mentioned is like the script has an early scene with Bobbi shaving
her entire body, and then kind of revealing that there's
the castration.
I believe it's revealing no genitalia. And actually, it's interesting in the script, Bobbi is merely described as a blonde with an E. My daughter informed me that when blonde is spelled with an E, it means it's feminine.
Oh, right. Okay, go.
Is Bobbi with an I or a Y in the script?
With an I. I mean, there's actually an interesting moment in the screenplay which has been cut out, and you can actually, it's the one moment in the movie where I can tell something's been cut, is with the doctor on the
Dr. Levy and Dr. Elliot.
Dr. Levy and Dr. Elliot, and they have different names in the screenplay. Michael Caine's character. Because Bobbi isn't a true transsexual, and this has been cut from the movie. Bobbi isn't a true transsexual. A transsexual has an unalterable belief that she is of one sex, trapped, and that's in quotes, in the body of the other. Bobbi is totally unaware of her other self. She's really a dangerous schizophrenic personality.
Okay, but no, that's De Palma taking it out of the realm of editorializing on transsexuals and turning it into Norman Bates, a schizophrenic character that does not know the existence of the two different personalities, that can have conversations with each other without knowing that they're the same person.
It's unfortunate that line is trimmed out of the movie. It, for whatever reason, it had to be cut, probably because it leaned too heavily into revealing
what's going on.
The reveal, which to audiences at that time would have been a reveal. And so it probably, was too much, but it actually is unfortunate because it is one of his defenses. The other one being that the Peter character actually, as a scientist, suggests, with no compunction, maybe my next experiment will be to make a new version of me, or to build a woman out of myself.
He finds it intriguing, the idea of the scientific medical application of
Correct.
it all.
And her final suggestion in line to him is better to stick with your computer.
Stick with your Peter.
Which his mother has established is named Peter.
Yes, stick with your Peter.
Yeah, play with your Peter.
But no, one thing that's interesting is while I haven't read the script, I have read the novelization, which De Palma got co-writing credit on, but I don't think he wrote shit. I think Campbell Black, who wrote the Raiders of the Lost Ark novelization, I think he used a lot of De Palma's script, and so De Palma got co-writing credit on it. But one of the things that's interesting about it is the fact of, and almost again ties it to Cruising, the fact that so many people had to play Bobby in order to create one Bobby. It is kind of wonky. I think you can use the term wonky to describe it, but he pulls it off. It all works. I almost can't believe that works as well as it does. Because once you see Michael Caine in the makeup and the costume, you know that is not who we've been watching through the entire film. In any way, shape, or form, that is not who we've been watching in the entire film. But he still makes it work. All right, so there's the cop woman who's tailing Peter, who is also playing Bobby as well. Then there's William Finley, who's playing Bobby's character on all the phone voice messages. And then there's Michael Caine at
William
the end.
Finley, who's the Phantom in Phantom of the
yeah.
Paradise. Yeah.
But because of that type of tomfoolery that he's doing, he's never allowed to have just a regular scene of Bobby, just being Bobby. But the paperback doesn't have those problems.
So there's scenes with Bobby.
There's the opening chapter of the book is a scene of Bobby in a bar trying to pick up a guy.
Okay.
Trying to pick up a guy and basically realizing, as Nancy Allen says, once you take off all the clothes, now the jig's up. And it's great. It's Bobby is my favorite De Palma killer of all the villains, of all De Palma's villains. Bobby's my favorite. And it's a negative in the movie that we never have a scene from Bobby's perspective. But it's kind of great that the book offers up one.
It helps to humanize the character. I mean, and you feel a glimpse of that in the script, just barely a glimpse.
Well, the voice message is as close as you're going to get on the answering machine.
I don't know if William Finley's voice humanizes Bobby, make Bobby sound like a crazy shithouse fucking rat.
Don't make me a bad girl again.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying that's the closest we get.
Yeah, that's the closest we get.
That's all we get.
Yeah.
Have you ever wondered what the lead singer of Smash Mouth, Zach Goody, feels about new versus old guys in music and cinema? Or how photographer Toasty Cakes makes his cinematic discoveries? What about the opinion of Rotten Tomatoes editor Jacqueline Coley and what she considers to be the new Hollywood shift of the streaming era? Join me, reporter on the beat Gala Avery, as I get to the bottom of these very questions. Starting on October 26th, I have a new guest on the mic every week. Yes, every Thursday, hear your favorite filmmakers, photographers, actors, models, and more talk about a topic that is near and dear to their heart that they want you to know about. You'd be surprised at what people are interested in. The Gala show premieres October 26th with new episodes every Thursday, available wherever you get your podcasts.
In Nashville, you can hear great country music. In Memphis, you can hear great Southern blues. And in the Great Smoky Mountains, you can see beautiful sunsets. But in Chattanooga, you can drink the best beer brewed in Tennessee for the last 40 years. Old Chattanooga. Still brewed at the Old Chattanooga Brewery at Kingston Pike and Old Chattanooga Road. So bring home a 6-pack of Southern hospitality. Bring home a 6-pack of Old Chattanooga beer. Old Chattanooga beer. The best beer this side of Texas. And we're back and joined by Gala Avery, wearing a rare dress, all right, for
I
you.
am dressed up for my Giallo week.
Oh my God, you are. You're actually dressed a little bit like Bobbi. Yeah.
I'm theme dressed right now.
If you just had dark sunglasses and a blonde Gloria wig, all right, you would be Bobbi.
She literally said today, I was like, wow, you're dressed up. And she said, yeah, this is Giallo week.
Right on.
She's dressed to kill.
Oh, yeah.
Right. She is dressed to kill.
Well, hello, Quentin. Hello, Roger. Hi, Eli. I'm so glad that you're on the show. I'm so excited that we're talking about Giallo. One thing you mentioned was the violence of a Giallo film, and I actually pulled a leaflet calling for a protest against Dressed to Kill that was distributed in San Francisco by the Women Against Violence and Pornography in Media in 1980. My favorite part was this part in all caps, which actually plays into something that you said earlier, Quentin. From the insidious combination of violence and sexuality in its promotional material to scene after scene of women raped, killed, or nearly killed, Dressed to Kill is a masterwork of misogyny. The distorted image of a psychotic male transvestite makes all sexual minorities appear sick and dangerous. Dressed to Kill follows a new trend in films. Witness the gay male killer of Cruising, the lesbian rapist of Windows, and now the killer transvestite of Dressed to Kill. Though Kate Miller dies and Liz Blake bleeds time and again, 3 scenes, the rape, the necrophilia, and the slashing scene, were to have happened in women's minds. As if the eroticization of violence were not enough, Dressed to Kill asserts that women crave physical abuse, that humiliation, pain, and brutality are essential to our sexuality. If this film succeeds, killing women may become the greatest turn-on of the 80s. Join our protest. March with us on August 28th.
One of the things that they reacted to especially was when it came to slasher films, all the established critics working for newspapers and magazines like Time or Newsweek and everything took a dim view of them and talked about how they didn't appreciate the sexual politics and just called them these sleazy movies. And then Siskel and Ebert had a whole diatribe against slasher films. Then Dressed to Kill comes out at the height of the slasher film genre, 1980, the height of the slasher film genre. And then it gets rhapsodous reviews from the most established critic, especially female film critics. Pauline Kael gives it a rave. Sheila Benson, surprisingly enough, like raved about it beyond the beyond.
I remember that.
Which was like, whoa, Sheila Benson.
It was weird.
And so the fact that this was getting this high art prestige reviews, that in particularly bugged this group. And that was one of the things they were responding against, was this being deemed as art by the high society film critics and especially the female film critics.
Well, as the woman in the room, I love Dressed to Kill. I think it's an awesome movie. I've seen this movie before, so it was a treat to watch it again. And I thought to myself, I know the ending. Am I going to be surprised? Am I going to have fun rewatching it? Hell yeah, I did. It was a blast. The cinematic language that De Palma uses in his films, in all of his films, but specifically in this film, he crosses the line, actually intentionally looking into the mirror at the very first therapy scene when he becomes Bobbi.
Yeah.
Like, it's deliciously juicy.
It's jarring on purpose.
Literal line cross.
Yeah.
You're crossing back and forth between the two personalities.
The two personalities.
Yeah, there's
a mirror.
No, it's right up there. It's right up there with the real change in Love One.
Exactly. He crosses the line on purpose. He uses split screen to emphasize the bifurcation. He uses mirrors throughout. It's
no. Every one of De Palma's visual motifs is hit in Dressed to Kill. Media inside of media.
Media inside of media, inside of cinematic gags.
Interestingly, in this case, though, usually the media inside of media, he creates both medias. In here, he uses the real Donahue.
Yeah.
Well, he could have come up with a phony guy, and done his own talk show. But he
needs a touchstone into actual reality.
Absolutely.
To let everyone know, I know what reality
I've done my
is.
homework.
Yeah.
I know what I'm talking about.
I know what reality is. This is what we're going into is inside my brain. It's like this is a non-reality. And in fact, and that's only enforced by the heightened cinema.
Yeah. And also just the use of mirrors, as we were talking about. I love that you realize kind of what's happening by the time that towards the end when he looks into the mirror and he becomes Bobbi.
When he smiles
into the mirror, you kind of realize, and then you go back and you think about that time that he looked into the mirror before. And it's such a good tool that you're using the mirror to show the mirror personality and the other side of yourself.
But even then in that moment when he looks in the mirror, you think there's a little tiny piece of you that thinks, oh, he's smiling because he's going to get lucky.
No.
Because Nancy, that's what I thought when the young Roger watching this movie.
I definitely thought that the very first time. And so did the audience. There was a laugh in the audience.
Oh, he's going to get it.
Maybe Angie Dickinson didn't get it. All right. But Nancy Allen closed the deal.
and then he has the female cop, MacGuffin, the female detective who's blonde.
Betty Luce.
Kind of.
What a name.
I know. What a great name.
A Bond girl name for the ages.
Betty Luce.
Creeping up behind Keith Gordon. And so in that moment, you're like, the killer's going to get Keith Gordon now. And so he's walking the tightrope all the way to the end. That's why the script is so fantastic, frankly.
But speaking about this whole thing of the Palma methodology and him carrying it through and maybe finding its finest home in this, he gave a really interesting description of the entire last section together. He was saying that he purposely structured it so you've got the whole scene with Liz Blake and Dr. Elliot turning into Bobbi and the whole leading up to it, Peter Miller looking through the window. And then just when it looks like it's going to happen, the cop shows up, shoots Bobbi. Bobbi goes down and the day is saved. And then De Palma goes, and at that point, I've disappointed the audience. They want to see her get sliced up. They know you've been jerked off through he actually said these words. I don't know if he used jerked off, but you've been jerked off through this entire movie.
It would be appropriate.
It would be appropriate. You've been jerked off through this entire movie.
For the Dr. Elliot character, not for
exactly,
Bobbi.
Exactly.
You're to expect this big ending. And then when Nancy Allen is just saved at the last minute by a cop, you're disappointed. They wanted more. They wanted to see her sliced up. And I don't know if they want to see her sliced up, but they wanted it elongated more. They wanted a bigger sequence, and they don't get it. And then he has the scenes that happen after it, which are telegraphing to an audience, okay, no, we're wrapping it up. We're wrapping it up. We're wrapping it up. We're wrapping it up. Then it cuts to the insane asylum scene. And he said that the point was, after I've given you moments that they're wrapping it up, was for the audience to grab their Raisinets, grab their popcorn, get ready to rise up and leave. And they go, oh, hey, wait a minute. Whoa. This looks like it's not over. And then he has his real ending, where she gets to get sliced up, but still live through it.
And also that actually, you just reminded me, I'm getting goosebumps because the mirror, specifically in her dream sequence at the very end, when the hand with the straight razor comes out of the mirror and slices her, that is such an awesome moment.
Yeah.
The reuse of the mirror, the hand coming out, the straight razor.
Yeah, because Bobbi's been in the mirror the whole time.
Bobbi's been in the mirror the entire time.
Like something out of
What
Twin
a
Peaks.
great way to put it.
Bobbi comes out and slices her throat.
Yeah,
it's
I
amazing.
can remember seeing this film for the first time, and I saw it with Scott, actually. And I vividly remember the moment because I was so freaked out by that final shower scene moment and with her creeping out of the shower and seeing the razor and kind of slowly going for it, and the shoes are kind of you only see the tips of the shoes behind the door, and then that shot where the camera kind of hovers over it, kind of slowly moves over the shoes, and we realize they're empty. And to this day I can hear Scott saying, she's jumped out of the shoes. She's not in the shoes. And it wasn't even that I registered what was happening on screen, because the visual information was like affecting my brain so intensely in that moment, because I was so terrified. But hearing Scott say, she's not in the shoes, it was like every time I watch the movie in that moment, I hear Scott whispering that to me. And it scares me hearing him whisper that to me.
Okay, so do you guys think that Bobbi has escaped from the asylum, or do you think that's part of the dream?
Oh, no, it's all part of the dream.
You think that's also part of the dream?
The whole thing is a dream. Yeah. She's traumatized, like Carrie. She's traumatized.
The whole thing is De Palma's dream and De Palma's reality.
Well, no, De Palma made a point about it, because actually when he said that in that interview I'm talking about, the interviewer goes, yeah, but you kind of tip it over that it's a dream when you see how Marat saw it and how like surreal the insane asylum is. And he goes, yeah, but I'm not a realistic director per se. So that doesn't just tip somebody over that it's a dream sequence, because I'm extravagant in my sequences. So that could be my real interpretation of an insane asylum.
And I actually agree, because it was very One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, in my opinion. To be honest, I did not think it was a dream sequence the first time I saw it until she wakes up screaming.
I didn't think so either, because there's two scenes. Carrie at the grave, we're all expecting he's going to do a dream sequence shock ending, but it's one scene at a funeral. And then she comes out, this is like, you're in an insane asylum, you're like, it's a dream. And then they cut to the POV, you're like, oh, that wasn't a dream. She's like actually escaped.
Yeah.
And now she's going to get killed. So you're like, oh, this was a 2-scene dream. That's the trick.
But no, what's interesting is I love it now. But I remember when I first saw it, I saw Dressed to Kill the day it opened. I saw it the Friday. It opened at Del Amo Mall. Yeah. And I rarely did this. I actually walked out talking out loud about my incredulousness about the movie. I couldn't believe he ended it like Carrie.
Yeah.
The same shot, the same DiMaggio staying going as the camera rises and she's crazy. And she's all flipped out. I literally walked out of the Del Amo 3 theater.
Pissed off.
I'm not pissed off. No, I wasn't pissed
Stunned.
off. I was flabbergasted. I go, he ended it like Carrie. I can't believe he ripped off his own ending. I cannot believe that's how it ended.
Or is this movie an homage to Carrie, and he's taking from,
or is
Hitchcock
this the ultimate expression that he?
No problem with it. I think every other time I ever saw it. But the first time I saw it, I was flabbergasted that a director would take his own ending from his own movie. That's recognizable.
Like, within less than 5 years, 4 years later.
Well, it's like every time a trunk opens up in a Quentin Tarantino movie, there's a camera inside of it looking out at everybody, staring in
but not
at the body on the inside.
But if one of my movies were to end exactly the way,
like the last line is "I'm a cop," you'd be like, wait a minute
here.
Also, I love that De Palma actually includes Bobbi earlier in the film at the museum sequence.
No, we talked about that.
Yeah, if you pause at 21 minutes and 39 seconds, you will see Bobbi waiting there. And I love that.
Well, you guys always knew that,
and
right?
I knew it, but I think that is actually, in that instance, I think that's Michael Caine. I think that...
No, it's absolutely Betty Luce. It's absolutely Betty.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. He can't put Michael Caine in there, or it's just too fucking obvious. Michael Caine in that pancake makeup. It's too obvious.
Yeah, but
it happens so fast.
It's Betty Luce.
In the script,
we'll watch it
right
comes
now. After she gets in the car, they drive off, and then cut to Bobby's watching them and walks away.
Yeah. Well, Bobbi takes the glove. And
picks up the glove and walks away.
But I love that. As a fan, I love getting to rewatch a movie. I just think it's awesome to rewatch something. I go, oh my God, there's Bobbi. Bobbi's in the shot.
That's one of my favorite shots in the whole movie is the pan from Angie Dickinson's gaze to the cab and passing by Bobbi.
And I like how Bobbi is turning to look as she's looking to see what she's looking at, as we're turning to look to see what we're looking at. I mean, in a way, he's making us Bobbi, a disembodied Bobbi watching the same thing.
So my favorite De Palma film is Phantom of the Paradise. I'm a huge fan of that movie. I listen to my record on repeat over and over and over again.
Yeah, it plays all day in our house.
I'm pretty sure my dad
will remember you forever.
Yeah.
It's like I just walk by Gala's room and I hear...
When I was in middle school, I even
Goodbye, Eddie.
I even used Special to Me to audition for the school play. So that's how I was. But
it's the great Paul Williams.
Yeah, and so this time when I'm watching it, I actually heard Bill Finley's voice. And I was like, oh my God, it's Bill Finley. I didn't know that. He's uncredited. I was so excited. And then Roger and I were talking about it. And he's also cross-dressing in Phantom of the Paradise.
Yeah.
So I kind of did a little bit of research of, obviously, I'm sure we all know this, but De Palma and Finley were friends since college. Finley was in De Palma's first short, Wanton's Wake, where he is not in drag, but he is a perverted character that dresses in a gorilla suit. In De Palma's first feature, Finley plays a prime red herring, but manages to dispatch the real killer by manipulating the body of one of his female victims.
That's actually his second film, because the first film is Wedding Party, which Bill Finley is in with Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
There's also a film version of a performance group staging of Dionysus 69. Bill Finley is not in drag, but he is doing what we will call Greek stuff in togas.
In togas. Okay.
So it seems it was less about cross-dressing with roles with Bill Finley and De Palma and more about gender fluidity in Finley's roles. Finley married his wife in 1975, stayed with her until his death. He has a child and no record of trysts or political activism for the gay community. Why did he voice for Bobbi? Probably just a favor between friends.
Yeah.
I think it's important for all viewers out there to know that this film has gone through constant reevaluation in the social opinion of it, specifically with the transgendered character. There have been, I dug up
several reviews from actual transgendered activists and reviewers, all the way back from 1984, the Criterion re-release in 2015, and now. I will save the reviews maybe for the after show later, unless you want me to read them.
On History of Horror, we did a deep dive. We had Alexandra Billings.
You did that on your show, right?
You're right.
You did a deep dive.
We don't know what that is.
Oh my God, I don't know what that is.
Just so the listener knows what's going on, we had a whole conversation with Eli before the episode that on this show, we don't use phrases like hot take or deep dive.
You did a detailed analysis. On
History of Horror, we did a detailed analysis. And Brian Fuller from Hannibal and Alexandra Billings, it was really interesting to hear their point. And they love the movie, but obviously you can't, you have to, for that community, they certainly want to address it, but it still doesn't stop their enjoyment of the film.
Sure. So it didn't affect Brian Fuller's appreciation of the film?
No, he loves the movie. Okay, and, and they talk about how, how the Liz Blake character being normalized was way more controversial at the time. Mm-hmm. But you sort of have to acknowledge what it's saying, but it's still, he loves De Palma so much and loves Blowout and Dress to Kill that they almost don't want that to affect their enjoyment of the movie.
I watched mine on Amazon. I rented it, which means I actually did get to see the performance of the woman.
The Mary Davenport.
The Mary Davenport sitting behind as they describe the procedure that one undertakes.
It's the only genuine loss, all right, from the video cassette, is missing Mary Davenport's very funny reaction to the description of the vaginoplasty for those in the know.
I bought my VHS tape on eBay for $20. It is a Warner Home Video clamshell in 1984. My tape is supposed to go in the horror section, whereas Quentin's goes in the adult drama section.
Adult drama.
Well, they changed their
Dress to Kill is fluid in a lot of areas, all right? Beyond sexuality.
Genre is one of them.
Including genre.
So I just want to make a point that the poster that's on the front of Gala's Warner Brothers box, which is the later version of Quentin's paper clamshell, is the French Metro poster on the inside. And you may or may not remember, but in the script for True Romance, made sure to include a French Dress to Kill poster.
Oh, yeah.
Was in it. And while on set, I pulled the poster, I kept it, and I put it into Killing Zoe. And so it's that poster, which now hangs in my son's room.
But the reason also is part of your wild time in France that inspired Killing Zoe.
Yeah.
At those junkies' house was a big French poster for Dress to Kill.
That's right. We always just talk about that. I remember telling you, they had this giant Metro poster for Dress to Kill in their apartment. You
remember said I walk out, wow, Quentin would really dig this place.
I mean, the story is I was traveling through Europe in 1987. I was in Paris, hated it, and was on my way out when I bumped into a French friend of mine who I knew from UCLA. And so he was like, oh, I'll show you the real Paris. And took me and introduced me to all of his friends, who I wrote in as characters in Killing Zoe eventually. And in fact, this guy is in Killing Zoe. He plays the bellboy. Eventually, I saw him when we were in pre-production. I was like, oh my God, you're going to play the bellboy in the movie. And he showed up and he was on heroin while shooting. Anyhow,
we do heroin.
Yeah, and now we do heroin. Anyhow, we went over to their apartment because he was like, now we do heroin. Hold my arm. And I go over to his apartment and they had this, and it was like a junkie's apartment, except for the fact that they had this giant French Dress to Kill poster, which said Pulsians on it.
Yeah.
So from that moment on, I came home and I immediately, of course, told Quentin about it. And so that it found its way into every screenplay after that, I think, in an attempt to.
And frankly, I think it was to some degree or another, it was the Video Archives crew reaction to your French escapade that led you to think that maybe I should turn this into a movie.
Yeah. Roger Takes a Trip.
Yeah.
Actually, that was your title.
Yeah, that was the title for Roger Takes a Trip.
You wanted it to be. I probably should have called it Roger Takes a Trip. It's a good title. It's a good title. I mean, so whenever I look at the Pulsians poster, which actually I think hung in my daughter's.
It's in my brother's room right now.
But originally, when you were like a child, like when you were a baby in the crib, this was in my office, and your crib was in my office. Actually, we only had a 2-bedroom apartment. And so there was this giant, describe the poster, which you were stared at as a baby.
The poster is a woman putting on her black stockings, presumably sitting on her tub, as a man with a single black glove opens the door and he's just kind of creeping in. Actually, years later, you asked me, Gala, why do you not like to have your door open a crack? And I told you, I'm terrified that someone's going to come in. And it's because this poster as a baby was hanging above me.
Yeah.
It's good parenting, right?
Yeah, I know. I've apologized for that and a lot of other things,
But here I am now.
Yes, exactly. It's all as well.
Yeah.
Her world, sensual, dazzling. His world, dangerous, violent. Drawn by a mystery, their lives converge. Faye Dunaway, Tommy Lee Jones, Eyes of Laura Mars. A thrilling vision of romance and terror. Rated R.
Eyes of Laura Mars, with co-hit Dressed to Kill, will be playing Wednesday, October 19th and Thursday, October 20th at the New Beverly Cinema, 7165 Beverly Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90036. Visit thenewbev.com for more information. The New Beverly Cinema, always on film.
Always.
Okie doke, and we're back. And now we're following it up with Irv Kershner's Eyes of Laura Mars.
So first of all, this is a Columbia Pictures home entertainment clamshell case, which I haven't seen in a very, very long time.
No, it's really unique.
It's one of the most beautiful, boxes of this sort, partly because the poster of Eyes of Laura Mars is such a beautiful poster, and they lean heavily into that graphic of the eyes. And plus, it's got the kind of that beautiful catalog branding that Columbia Pictures did at that time with the kind of blue stripes.
Well, here's the thing about it is I actually, of all the studios that had their own kind of brand, not that one, but what later RCA Columbia boxes became.
That kind of black and red.
So, but with the blue border around it and the RCA Columbia at the top. That's actually maybe my favorite of all the studio like logos set up for a video box. Even though like we talked about how great the Paramount ones are, but this is before they established that RCA Columbia thing where they were. I'm trying to remember the other white boxes we had of stuff like this, and none of them are coming to my mind right now.
None are coming to my mind either, but this one stands out. Yeah, this one really jumps out. Also, it has no tagline, so which is either classy or they're just going purely off of the title and that beautiful graphic at the beginning. So back of the box reads, Eyes of Laura Mars. Fashion photographer Laura Mars, Faye Dunaway, world-renowned for her erotic portraits of gossamer-gowned models in settings of urban violence, becomes a focal point for a series of bizarre murders. The victims are all people Laura has known. Each murder is witnessed, and that's in quotes, by Laura in her mind's eye, as if through the lens of her camera. These terrifying experiences bring Laura together with an intimate relationship with a homicide detective, John Neville, Tommy Lee Jones, who tries to unravel the events that have taken control of Laura's mind. Eyes of Laura Mars comes out in 1978.
What number is it on the box?
This is 8582, which comes late in the...
yes, but I think we did. I think we had that for sure in the horror section. So that would be under the E's in horror. And as we were watching it, it was, okay, not only is it passing the test of being an American Giallo, truly could have been an Italian movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not a Giallo homage. No, it is practically a Giallo. This exact movie, this exact screenplay could have been done in Italy with Umberto Lenzi directing it.
Yeah,
I
think one of the things that was so fun to watch was the way the fashion shoots were staged so realistically in the Helmut Newton photography and the idea of violence and the lens of violence. I mean, it's really... But it does feel, it's so stylish.
But it is kind of fascinating when we're watching it. Nothing about the movie seems authentic, from the police investigation to the portrayal of the cop to even the portrayal of her level of celebrity. Especially not the gimmick of seeing through the killer's eyes, randomly whenever they kill. But the one thing that is absolutely authentic is the direction of the photo shoots. That are laid out. There's nothing fanciful about them. They're exactly realistic. I've been on David LaChapelle photo shoots, and they are just like what's presented in Eyes of Laura Mars.
Yeah, I would actually say that it's done almost intentionally. They present those photo shoots, which is the fabrication of non-reality from these visions that she's getting, they shoot them like verite style. It's like a real photo shoot that you're at. And it really feels that way. And because Helmut Newton not only shot all the photographs, but probably also was consulting.
Yeah, for the art direction.
What a photo shoot would be like. And he shoots it in a kind of with long lenses, frequently from afar, as if we're watching like kind of reality. He's catching events. We're seeing deep shots where we see New York like running into the horizon.
But then also the way it captures a uniquely authentic but different high-class Manhattan than Dressed to Kill. This captures the disco Manhattan. And this movie has one of the best disco soundtracks of its era.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it does feel like this interesting mix of a Giallo film where it's the John Carpenter influence and a John Peters production with the Barbra Streisand song.
Yeah.
So it's like you have this kind of big Hollywood feel about it with the movie stars and the Streisand music and the photography, but also it's got John Carpenter slasher, stalking slasher.
And then also just to make the point of it though, when I saw the movie after the movie came out, I went and got the soundtrack album. Now I liked the Barbra Streisand song, but I got it for the let's all chant. That's why I got the record. Your body, my body.
But I mean, the whole idea of if Giallo in any way requires a descent into a dreamlike realm, that's the purpose of shooting those so verite style. Is to kind of to contrast with how dreamlike the nightmare moments are.
Okay, well, I don't think we've described the storyline quite exactly well enough so far. So the idea is Laura Mars has become this ridiculously famous celebrity for doing these
a name photographer, a name fashion photographer,
but apparently a household name.
Well, like you named David Chappelle. It would be at that level, probably.
Yeah, but she seems even more popular than that. Yeah. Right, like she's been on the Tonight Show a bunch of times.
Annie Leibovitz or something.
Yeah, she seems more famous than all of those guys put together.
She's the photographer who has paparazzi photographers
following her. Yeah.
Well, she's reminding me.
She's as famous as Faye Dunaway in the movie.
And her work actually in Helmut Newton's work is reminding me a lot of Stephen Meisel, which he does a lot of kind of outlandish murder scene type stuff would be up his alley.
So she's a world famous celebrity photographer whose specialty is taking beautiful women and creating an aspect of murder to them, and that's how she sells the products. And then it becomes clear later in the movie that she's just has these wild random images of murder and death, and then she redoes them as fashion layouts. She redoes them as these art pieces that include these little flashes in her head.
The police have taken notice. Hey, these are really close to actual murder.
The real crime scene photos.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the real photo that happened at the Mayflower Hotel, and then here's your photo shoot photo.
Yeah. And explain to me why they look exactly the same.
Exactly. And then
because this wasn't published.
So this is going on, but then somebody in her circle is murdered. And when the murder in her circle happens, she actually is able to watch the murder. She sees through the POV of the killer during the murder.
They have a psychic connection of some kind.
Yes. And then it happens again. And then it happens again.
And they're killing her friends.
And they're killing off her friends.
Everyone in her circle.
And her entourage.
And it's been happening apparently for a long time, which is how she's, processing these images into her work, is that it's been coming to her in dreams.
We don't realize that until much later.
And it hasn't ever been much more than just like, these are dreams or these are images that come to me. Now it's gotten more and more intense, like as if whatever's causing it is getting closer to her.
Well, as if the killer realized, okay, I'm going to get caught. So
it's starting to happen while she's awake. She's having waking dreams.
Yeah. And it's disconcerting to her, aside from the fact that when she puts together what's going on, but it's also when she's seeing through the eyes of the killer, she can't see what's in front of her. She can only see the killer's eyes.
Blind otherwise.
The killer never stops to look in the mirror.
Which makes it really cool. In one of the better scenes in the movie is when the killer goes to attack her, and all of a sudden she sees through the killer's eyes, but she's seeing herself being chased.
Yeah.
And she's running blind.
Yeah. And that's
which brings to mind the strange shadows in an empty room. Blind girl scene.
Yeah. Well, there's, it's got some of the great Giallo tropes of the cast of characters, the suspects, whether it's Renee Auberjonois, her kind of...
I love Renee Auberjonois.
Auberjonois is like kind of a very flamboyant
the sketchy ex-husband, Raul Julia.
Well, there's enough great supporting roles in this. Enough great actors are coming in that you start wondering, it could be anybody, the killer. Yeah. You don't know who it is.
Everyone's
very much like Happy Birthday to Me. They all take turns looking guilty.
They all have a reason.
And you, the audience member, you think you've got to figure it out. You're like, oh no, it's going to be him. But at a certain point, like Michael Tucker with his Gabe Kaplan afro. You're like, well, maybe it's him because he's kind of on the sidelines. Like they really do a good job. And there's a moment where to leave Renee, she's got the police tail. So to get off the scent of the police, to go to her crazy, ex-husband, where you're like, oh, he's the killer. They switch. Renee Auberjonois dresses in drag, and she dresses like him. There's the double drag switch, and then he gets murdered in drag. This is
almost a kind of reverse dress to kill, like an inverted dress to kill, where he's the one in drag getting killed in the elevator.
Not to compare the two movies in quality wise, but like what's happening in Dress to Kill and what's happening in Eyes of Laura Mars could literally be happening 3 blocks away from each other. They are happening simultaneously 3 blocks away from each other. At any point, these lead characters could cross by each other. Kate Miller could totally walk by Laura Mars.
They would know each other.
They're at the same party.
They don't even know each other.
They're at the same party.
I'm surprised Kate Miller isn't at the opening, of Eyes of Laura Mars.
No, it's interesting.
With her husband. I remember liking Laura Mars better than I did when we watched it. And I even saw it fairly recently, like within the last 2 years. I watched it with my wife, Daniela, because I thought she'd get a kick out of it. And she did. She liked all the fashion stuff going on. She's a model. But
she's a model. Like,
she is.
And that's the justification for wanting to see a movie where you're chased by a madman.
She liked all the disco and the fashion shoot, and it makes sense. All right. That's her world. The first half is not a Giallo homage. It is a legit Giallo. This is exactly the kind of screenplay you expect to come out of Tatanas or something. But then the John Peters part comes in, where Tommy Lee Jones, who plays the cop, and Laura Mars, who plays the photographer, are attracted to each other and they fall in love. And then right in the middle of the movie becomes a love story. Laura Mars throws her character completely out the window from that point on. It's just everything is about love and devotion, love and devotion, love and devotion. And Tommy Lee Jones seems to throw his character out the fucking window. All right. He's all about her than as about the case.
Well, one could say that he kind of fills the emptiness in her life of having like a real male protector.
I would agree with all that, except, I mean, her dialogue literally is reduced to, oh, I love you so much. Oh, I love you so much. I adore you. I can't live without you.
That moment feels rushed in the movie.
Yeah, and the other cops, the way they sort of like, it's a little weird. I guess Lieutenant's really getting in there. They just sort of
like Frank Adonis.
Frank Adonis. the beautifully named Frank Adonis.
Frank Adonis as Sal Volpe.
Yeah, they have to just like cop. Sort of make jokes
Only
about
when like
it.
The actor's name is actually more cliche than his character's cliche name.
Yeah, but they have to sort of make jokes about it and not act like it's weird that they're now a thing in the middle of this murder investigation as people are getting knocked off.
Yeah. But they're like, hey, he's sleeping with the famous photographer. What about us?
So while all that is a complete crock, in a weird way, it proves as subterfuge when it actually turns back into a Giallo again, more of a Giallo than it's ever been before. Yeah, because when it comes to the wrap-up.
Yes, it actually is the setup for something even so batshit crazy that even the Giallo films are like, wait a minute, this is more of a Rosso. This is even a Giallo. But there's one great scene. They do certain things that there's the murder that happens and everyone gets dragged into the police station. Renee Auberjonois.
No, that's a great sequence.
And then you see the models and they do the classic New York tracking shot across the faces of what would be prostitutes in a lockup, but they're all models, and
they're like, almost indistinguishable.
And they're all dressed up like prostitutes
because it looks like a Versace shoot.
When you put them on the streets of Fifth Avenue with steam and a flipped over car, it's a fashion shoot. But you put them in the police station, the same people all look like, and they're acknowledging it. They're like, we look like hookers in here.
Yeah, like they actually had to give them a line so that we would know that they weren't hookers.
But it's so great.
Look. The first 35 minutes of this movie is flawlessly directed. There's not a misstep in it, as far as I'm concerned. It holds that dream. For about 35 minutes, and then the wonky plotting gets involved, and then the wonky But then, I don't know if it's good, but it's kind of great the way it comes back, and for its final climax. Okay, so I'm going to ruin the end. I was almost wondering about. Maybe we shouldn't reveal this, but actually it's the thing about the movie that's worth talking about.
It's what makes it Giallo.
It's what makes it Giallo. This could be a Giallo trope, but it's also just a trope of wannabe thrillers where you have the boyfriend, fiance, husband character who's been completely straight and legit the entire movie. through a crazy monologue, he has to reveal that now he is the killer. And it's usually accompanied by a me-so-crazy performance that the actor has not given up until now. And Tommy Lee Jones in this movie does my second favorite me-so-crazy monologue reveal for that type of character. My favorite is Paul Michael Glazier's me-so-crazy performance reveal in John Huston's Phobia, which could almost be a Giallo as well.
No, it's amazing because he's such a good actor. And then you're just like watching him have to stuff in the crazy in one scene.
Yeah. And then
it's completely out of nowhere.
With a ridiculous backstory that would have made Ernesto Gastaldi proud.
Yeah.
With an absolutely crazy, ridiculous backstory.
And to be honest, as long as we're revealing everything...
A backstory so crazy... That's what reveals to Faye Dunaway he's the killer.
Yeah, yeah. But at the same time, I'm still kind of confused about the backstory, to be honest. Is he the father? Like, he's obviously has a schizophrenic personality. Is it the father that caused it, that has replaced him?
Yeah, I think so. Look, it's not for sure. Nothing's for sure. You're having to figure it out. For sure, he's a schizophrenic. When he's a cop, he doesn't know he's the killer. When he's the cop, he's actually looking for the killer. But then he switches his personality. He becomes his father, who is out there committing violence against prostitutes.
And even at the end, when he's going to kill Faye Dunaway, he basically puts the knife up to him and just says, kill him, kill him.
Yeah.
He's like, kill my other half.
And there's also a whole other thing. There's also a whole other thing because the father killed the mother. How dare anybody take this type of murder and try to sell products with it?
Yeah.
Commercialize it.
Commercializing it.
But just like in Dress to Kill, the character is a complete schizophrenic that does not know that two personalities are existing inside of one person.
It's a little movie-like, I guess, Hollywood movie-like, a little John Peters-like, to in the end have the kill me thing, as if you were flipping back and forth between the killer who will kill her and the guy who is willing to sacrifice himself and his...
Actually, that's them trying to hold on to the love story very desperately, all right up to the very end.
Too desperate.
Yeah. A mite too strong.
I mite too strong.
Yeah,
that's an Irish Spring reference.
I got it.
Okay, good.
I alone got it. I've got a review for Eyes of Laura Mars from the Movie Tone News, which was the film journal that the Seattle Film Society used to come out with. It's issues number 58 and 59 from August 14th, 1978. It's Richard T. Jameson, who's their editor. Give John Peters full credit. He's honest with his audience. At the beginning of A Star is Born, a voice called out advising, all you assholes out there, that the show wasn't about to get underway until everyone quieted down and John and Barbara proceeded to treat their public accordingly for the rest of the film. Not that a goodly portion of the public seemed to mind. Gee, Barbara called me an asshole. I have arrived. Peter's credit on Eyes of Laura Mars is preceded by a spacey model's muttering, gross. Yes, my dear, Eyes of Laura Mars is pretty gross. And in deference to memories of the good films director Irvin Kershner once made, I'd prefer to lay most of the blame at Peter's door. Clearly, we are not dealing with a movie here. This is a producer's package, a market research gratification kit ripe for a fast saturation merchandising. We need a classy careerist dame who takes fashion pictures. Get Dunaway. She's hot thanks to her network Oscar, and she looks as if she fits the milieu. The pornography of violence is a very heavy media trip right now. Get Hemlock Lang to take the actual satin and bloodstained photos Laura Mars is supposed to have done. Looking for Mr. Goodbar was full of mirror shots. My kid brother's film professor says they have something to do with deranged psyches and like that. So I'll have a lot of those, too. Because get this. We've got a derangement for you. The fashion photographer has this very kinky thing going where she's plugged into the perception of this really weird killer. So that suddenly, zap, she's seeing through his eyes as he closes in on his next victim. Matter of fact, it's been happening for some time. And that's where her controversial, it turns me on, but is it art photo ideas have been coming from. And she's only just picked up on the condition because of now the guy selecting his victims from among her subjects. in her new coffee table book called Are You Ready for This? The Eyes of Laura Mars, and doing them in with an ice pick through the eyes. I tell you, Manny, it's relevant. It's now. And this is the beauty of it. You won't be able to tell the movie from the ad art, which will make everybody happy because they'll know they bought exactly what they set out to buy.
You know, he's being super, super crass.
Yeah.
And the things he's being crass about are some of the best things in the movie.
Yeah,
Helmut Lang's contribution to the movie is fantastic. That Faye Dunaway knows how to behave in front of the camera like a model, works in the favor of the reality of all of that works in the favor. In fact, the fact that it's a package that John Peters packages it might be one of the better things John Peters has done.
I agree with that.
Because it's what he knows.
No, he knew what he was doing on this. He made, he made I think he made exactly the movie he wanted to make.
He totally made exactly the movie. And he was powerful enough to bring in guys like, Helmut Newton.
The killer's motivation, forgive the archaic term, becomes a hilarious mishmash as one syndrome succeeds another with the speed of a shutter. Though even this might have been an intriguing idea if Kershner and the actor in the guilty role could have handled the quick change transitions from mood to mood within an integral mise-en-scène. Besides playing similarly fast and loose with the inherent ambiguity of the film medium, Eyes of Laura Mars earns our contempt for wasting the special qualities of Faye Dunaway, an actress who seems doomed to lurch into empty effect whenever she is handled with less than inspiration, as in Bonnie and Clyde, Chinatown, The Three Musketeers, and not much else. Network being the sole instance of her playing a part with mere solid professionalism. If Irvin Kershner hand is positively in evidence anywhere in this atrocity, it is probably in the marginal behavioral games played between Renee Augemois as Laura's agent and Michael Tucker as Bert, a hanger-on to a I'm not sure what purpose. Richard T. Jameson. So I have a Shock Cinema magazine from spring 2004, issue number 24, that has an interview with Irv Kershner. And so they're talking to him about his career. And then the interviewer goes, I wanted to ask you about Eyes of Laura Mars. I know John Carpenter wrote that one. Kershner, oh, I threw that script out. I was set up to do the picture and I read that script and I said, no. I just thought it was awful. And a week later, John Peters came to me and he said that they wanted me to make it. So I said, if you want me to do it, I'll have to make changes. And he said, okay, do it. So I hired a writer and we started rewriting the script until there was almost nothing left from the original. I didn't like the Carpenter script. It had a lot of violence and it had no meaning. It just wasn't mysterious. It was just full of violence. I put the fashion business in it. That wasn't there before, and it gave it a tone.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Without that, it was nothing. So I tried to give it a form and also thought the actors were very good, but the hardest part was working on the script. The writer that I was working with had a heart attack. So he left the picture before we even started, and we had to get another writer, and we had to continue working on the script while we were shooting to get it right.
God, poor heart attack guy never got credit.
Yeah. We changed almost everything in the script. The only thing that they had in common was that they were about women who had visions. Nothing else remained. The dialogue, the characters are different, everything's different. But he does make good pictures, John Carpenter. Different kinds of pictures than the ones I make. I'm much more interested in characterization.
Yeah, maybe you've heard of my film, Empire Strikes Back. I gotta say, I was kind of on Irvin Kershner's side until I heard that interview. That was a fucking dick.
Well, he didn't want to do a movie of a script he thought was trash.
Yeah. What's interesting about that, though, is if all of that's true, Carpenter was obviously, Giallo influenced. Mm-hmm. And Irvin Kershner's like, no, it's a mystery. It's a this, it's a that.
No, wow, that's really well said. There probably was much more Giallo. It would have been even more Giallo influence if they had done Carpenter's version.
And the influence, enough is still there just by osmosis as it transfers.
Okay, nevertheless, without having read John Carpenter's script, I have to be on Kershner's side because it's the whole fashion model aspect is the part that works.
This might require a little bit of CSI work on my part. I might have to dig out to
find John Carpenter's script for Eyes.
Yeah,
because there's no eyes. Eyes.
Yeah.
I have a Psychotronic magazine, issue number 14, and it has an interview with Brad Dourif in it on a cult mystery directed by Irv Kershner. He played fashion photographer Faye Dunaway's ex-con chauffeur. This is him talking. That was the first bad boy I played. He wasn't really wicked. He was just an ex-con. He was actually a sympathetic character. We spent 2 weeks rewriting it. It never really quite got rewritten right. There was a lot of tension on the set. I enjoyed her, Dunaway, a lot. I also enjoyed working with Tommy Lee Jones. I don't think the two of them enjoyed working with each other, though. It was just very unsure. Nobody was really quite sure of the material, and they were right. The material had problems. Those of us who weren't involved in all of the bad stuff were having a great time, actually. You know, it's great to be in New York. I was young. I was surrounded by really gorgeous women. I stayed at the Hotel Navarro, which was kind of a really wild hotel. And by then I knew a lot of people in rock and roll, and people used to come into my hotel suite and play all night. God. I had a real party going.
God, I love Brad Dourif. That makes me love Brad Dourif even more.
That is so awesome.
And now we are joined by Gala Avery.
Hey guys, I really liked Eyes of Laura Mars. I keep wanting to call it The Eyes of Laura Mars, and I keep having to remind myself there is no the at the beginning. It's just Eyes of Laura Mars. Faye Dunaway is lit so beautifully in this movie.
Yeah.
How Victor Kemper lights her eyes is just, it's like old cinema. It's beautiful when you watch it, especially since the movie is all about her eyes. I mean, they better be lit well.
Eyes are like a prisoner. I'm captured by your eyes. Continue, Gala.
Yeah. If you dare.
Eyes by Laura Mars. Voiced by Quentin Tarantino.
The visual storytelling is really beautiful in this. This is actually, I've heard that this is the movie that George Lucas saw that allowed Kershner to direct Empire Strikes Back.
Still the best Star Wars movie, in my opinion.
So for any of you Star Wars fans out there, you should watch this movie too, because it might give you a little bit of taste.
It's famous because it didn't get that many great reviews, but one of the big reviews that it got that was laudatory was Pauline Kael gave it a rave. And it was one of those reviews of people who don't like her used against her from time to time. And they would ask her question, so what is about Eyes of Laura Mars, you know, in a Q&A, and she just shut them down, all right, and explain why she liked Eyes of Laura Mars so much.
Yeah, and you guys brought up the great supporting cast. I mean, Rene Auberjonois, who's from Star Trek. Raul Julia. Odo. Yeah, Raul Julia, who's awesome in this movie. Brad Dourif, who...
also on Star Trek.
Yeah, Brad Dourif, if you're listening, I love you. Like, you're one of my favorite actors of all time. So getting to see him, especially, this is one of his earlier roles. And I mean, he plays Chucky. And then in
Voice of
Chucky. And then in a lot of later roles, he's playing the villain. And so in this, as a later time viewer, it was really special to have myself think, oh, it's Brad Dourif. He must be the killer.
Well, he must be. And you like Exorcist 3, you know, he's always playing these kind of, he's the creepy guy.
Blue Velvet.
Yeah. In Star Trek Voyager, he plays Suitor, crewman Suitor.
Okay, no.
Who's a serial killer.
Just so you'll know, when I was a kid, he was my character. He was my, if Keith Gordon was your character.
Yeah, he would have been your entry into Eyes of Laura Mars.
Yeah, exactly. Because I always remember thinking, oh, I could have played that role well. All right, you know, but he became my favorite character. I was rooting for him not to be the killer because I liked him so much.
Yeah, but I just love being able to watch a movie and have an actor that's now typecast not be typecast in that role, because it tricked me. And I was like, oh, yay, he's not the villain, because I actually got fooled.
No, he almost has the Klaus Kinski role in Edgar Wallace, German Crimin.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I loved him in it. And also, when you guys were talking, it actually reminded me, because that scene when she's running away from the killer, I was just like, why doesn't she just look back and like see who the killer is? And then I was like, oh, wait, she's like seeing through the killer's eyes. So even if she looks back, she wouldn't be able to.
She's only going to see herself looking back.
Like the one kind of stupid thing I thought she did in the movie. And then I was like, oh, duh, it's the whole entire plot device, which I actually really liked. I was able to suspend my disbelief. I had a lot of fun thinking about it.
And the fact that back then, the idea of portraying cubism to an audience, you had to explain it. Like they had to go through that whole explanation scene with a camera to show
the television.
Actually, that's the only part about that whole thing that I liked. I liked the whole description to Tommy Lee Jones. I see this, and the hand and the camera pans to that. Okay, it's funny. That's one of the that was obviously one of the selling points to get the whole movie going, was Carpenter's idea that you could see through the killer's eyes. That's my least favorite element in the film, is that it doesn't ruin the movie. It doesn't stop it. They do a fair enough job with it, but it's my least favorite, even though it's the linchpin on the day.
Yeah, it's the reason for writing and making the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's so funny because I love it because, I mean, we revealed who the killer is. So we all know it's Tommy Lee Jones and his split personality. And I love it because when they finally make love, they talk about, you don't meet your soulmate, you recognize them. And it's kind of in a weird way also like, you don't meet your killer, you recognize your killer.
Yeah.
So it's this weird like dichotomy. And I don't know, and also the fact like they're soulmates, their souls are connected, they can see through each other's eyes. They are one. I don't know. It was this weird kind of romantic plot device that I approved of.
Well, one of the things about the film that it's a funnier movie when you've actually seen it once and you know who the killer is when you watch it, because they really have a lot of fun with the scenes between Tommy Lee Jones and Faye Dunaway talking about this and that and the other. Then all of a sudden his eyes go crazy as he says something, or here's a piece of information and then comes back. Which, if you know the movie, you go, oh, okay. And he talks in metaphor. He talks in killer metaphors constantly. If you know he's the killer.
That's so good, because like with Dressed to Kill earlier, it's like rewatching it, you find something new upon your rewatch. That's so important in movies.
Okay, but Dressed to Kill is such a classier version.
One thing that, Quentin, you just briefly mentioned that we kind of flew right over without really talking about it too much. I mean, this is coming from John Carpenter.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. I mean, it's like...
Well, the thing about it was interesting. It's like he wrote this script and he showed the script to John Peters, who wanted to establish himself as a big-time producer, which he would eventually, after Star is Born.
Basically to come out of the shadow of
Barbra
Streisand.
And he gets the script, which was then called just Eyes.
Right.
Not Lies, but the Wheat Brothers, but Eyes. John Peters reasoning, I think he just hears the idea. And he goes, that's going to be Barbra Streisand's next movie. And so he gets the script, buys it, and designs it to be a Barbra Streisand vehicle. She decides that it's not really what she wants to do following Star is Born, but she supports John Peters anyway. He gets like the next biggest female lead of Faye Dunaway. I think this is Faye Dunaway's follow-up to Network, if I'm not mistaken. But he gets Barbra Streisand to do the theme song.
She did one or two other. She did a TV movie and then something else just before.
Yeah. Oh, she did the Amy Simple McPherson.
That's right. That's right.
No, then she made another. It's not a Giallo. It's more of a horror film. Yentl. Actually, Eyes of Laura Mars was released under a different title in Boston. It was Eyes of Laura Maz. Dude, you see Eyes of Laura Maz? Wicked scary kid.
Saw it in the Hobbit Yard.
Yeah, dude. Eyes of Laura Maz. Fuck yeah, buddy.
Yeah, and the visual storytelling I find really beautiful in this film, but the ending... The reveal was really cool, but the ending of like, oh, kill me, and then her on the phone with the 911 operator, I felt a little bit let down. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It didn't really like sell it. There was this big buildup, and that's what I was left with.
It literally is just Tommy Lee Jones' Me So Crazy performance, all right, out of the blue, all right, that makes it work.
I mean, him jumping through the window like a wildcat.
Yeah, but what that should have been the setup was she should have like, don't do it, shoot him, he struggles, he falls down and goes through a taxi cab. Like you're in a high rise with a broken window. It was such a setup for a body fall and a splat and a big ending.
And they probably brought that David Goodman in, as I'm thinking about it, to write, probably because of Straw Dogs, because he had worked on Straw Dogs.
I think my guess...
I like Logan's Run. That's a great script.
My guess is Goodman was brought in to turn it into a love story.
Right.
Yeah, that feels right.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I feel like if
turn it into the John Peters movie that Peters wanted and that Faye Dunaway wanted.
Right. I feel like if Carpenter had directed, they're keeping it classy, but if Carpenter had directed it, you could see him the ending would have been he falls out the building, he lands, two cars crash, and the camera would have pulled back, and he literally would have been in one of the murder scene photographs of her fashion shoot.
That's a great ending.
And a New York Post guy like stops by, and all these people are taking
some Ouija
photos
guy.
of it. Ouija.
Yeah.
And then the ending would have been
Kubrick.
and that would have tied the whole thing. And when I direct the remake of Lives of Laura Mars, that's how I'm ending.
That's
a
great ending.
That's how it should have ended.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing is the
by Eli Roth, taken by the skies.
Record that. We already have a recording of the theme song sung by Quentin Tarantino. Done. We're using that.
I'm telling you, Eli, that's a much better ending. That's a great ending.
But that's what the ending, I was thinking about it. It's like, that's what the ending should have been. You're setting up for this whole thing with crime scene photos and the reveal and the killer. He should have fallen out in some grotesque street. A car flips over, catches on fire, and you pull back and you realize that he has created his own version. And then she sees it.
Or she could be photographing it.
Well, she sees it in her mind, and then someone come on the street photographs it. And he's become part of a murder tableau.
Yeah.
That's the problem. That's the ending I want, and I didn't get it.
We'll reshoot
And that's the ending that gave us, Sweet Alice gave us twice.
Yes.
Gave us twice overhead shots of people on fucking sidewalks with blood.
Well, if anyone at Sonia Columbia is listening, we can give Eli a call.
I actually managed to get a Columbia. They call it an early release, a Columbia early release white clamshell, just like Quentin's, for $99.99.
Wow.
Just short of 100.
Just short of 100. It is so.
I feel like you need to clean that off a little. You need to wipe it down. That box is sticky. I don't know why.
Yeah.
No, it's a little disturbing that somebody's copy is.
Thank you for handing me the sticky box.
It's a sticky box.
No, but those clamshells start to molt after a while.
Yeah, they vulcanize.
Like they just get stickier.
Yeah, but it's beautiful. And also when you open
Especially
up the tape,
when you've not washed your hands.
The tape still also has that beautiful blue typeface.
Yeah.
It's just gorgeous. And just her eyes and I don't know. It's not even black and white. It's like black and blue.
But one of the things that's so great is like there's on it is like a little yellow sticker that says Carpenter, because obviously in our May We Suggest section, which every week we would choose something else. We obviously had a John Carpenter retrospective going on that week. And so we put Carpenter on there so people would know that this was a Carpenter movie, so we wouldn't put it back into the
or maybe there's a Carpenter section at some point.
No. It was our May We Suggest every week. This guy, this genre, this whatever. So this is literally left over from our Carpenter week that we had that we never took off.
It seems like a riff on Franju, the Eyes Without a Face poster. Which it must have been for the time.
I remember when we did movies to get stoned to, and all these Manhattan Beach mothers were complaining, like, what is this section here?
Yeah. So then Roger changed it to the Feed Your Head section.
Yeah.
Right, I still have that card. I still have that card that you draw that has like
because I used to draw all the little cards.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like one of that little character that Roger draws all looks like Roger. So it's the Roger character, and he's got a syringe stuck in his arm. He's eating black tar heroin. He's smoking a big fat joint, and he's got
all these
pills
drugs
and cocaine.
Yeah.
And then the word balloon is, oh my God, what has my life become?
That's my social satire.
Make sure to stay tuned for next episode of the Video Archives podcast, where we'll be continuing our discussion on American Giallo with Alice, Sweet Alice, and Happy Birthday to Me. The Video Archives podcast is hosted by Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery and produced by Josh Richmond and Gala Avery. Our engineer is Devin Torrey Bryant, and our executive producers are Colin Anderson and Natalie Mualem. Find out more about the show by heading to videoarchivespodcast.com. You can also find us on Twitter at Video Archives and on Instagram at Video Archives Pod. Have you ever wanted to hear Mick Garris discuss the differences between original source material and the movies they become? Or Joe Russo's favorite gateways into horror? What about author Max Brooks and how he thinks that Minecraft will literally save humanity? Join me, reporter on the beat Gala Avery, as I get to the bottom of these topics on my new show, The Gala Show. In this weekly podcast, Guests from Los Angeles and beyond have 30 minutes on the clock to bring whatever topic they want to the mic. So, tune in every Thursday for a new guest with an entirely new topic. The first episode drops October 26th. Available wherever you get your podcasts.